Hi everybody, this is NumNum and today I'd like to talk about Orbs of Chance. What do they do, how to get them, the influence they have on the price of normal white items that you would usually discard, as well as the probabilities behind all this. So first of all, let's get right into it. An Orb of Chance, what does it do? You use a normal white item, you use your Orb of Chance on it. Either it's going to destroy the item most of the time, or it's going to upgrade the item to a unique item of the same base. So it is used to gamble, basically. You just go through your white items like this and cross fingers to get a unique item. Alright, how do you get these Orbs of Chance? Well, if you're lucky, you can drop them straight up on a map, for example. More likely, you're going to drop only shards. So after that, 10 shards will make an Orb of Chance. The other way to do it is just to go and disenchant unique items. So here, two things can happen. If your unique item has only a few affixes, like this one, it's going to be worth only 1 shard. Whereas if it has full affixes, it's going to be worth 2 shards. Okay, so but that's the way you get them. Right now, an Orb of Chance is worth about 2 Exalted Orbs, which is honestly not much. But earlier in the league, they were more expensive. They can be worth 6, 8 Exalted Orbs. So it could be a viable early league strategy to just disenchant unique items that you don't need. I mean, right now, let's be honest, most unique items are completely worthless. And get your shards and basically exchange them for Exalted Orbs. Alright. Now let's talk about whether to use them or to sell them. That will depend really where we are in the league, because in the early league, some unique items are going to be sought after and they are going to be worth quite a bit, but after some time, the price will really decrease to where it's not really worth it to even try to chance them. Whereas some others are going to get more and more expensive, so it really depends. Let's start with what's really worth a lot of money right now. So clearly, most valuable one right now is Astramentis. So the base is a stellar amulet. We can see that Astramentis is worth 250 and more. So that's divines. So that's quite a bit. Here you will need a stellar amulet. So what's going to be interesting in this case is that if you look up a normal stellar amulet right now on the market, there's a lot of price fixing going on. So you see it starts at 4, 5 exalted, and most of those are really fake prices. Well, the other ones being people who are being kind of scammed by the price fixing, because this amulet is worth a lot more than that. I didn't try to trade one today, but recently it was selling for up to, I would say, 180 exalteds. So that's where you need to be careful, basically, because there are lots of people you see trying to make you put them up for sale for 5, 10 exalted when it's worth actually a lot more. Whether that makes sense or not is a different story, and I'm going to get to that later in the video. But if you've been wondering why your white stellar amulets are being shown by your loot filter, there's a good reason for that, because they are really, really expensive. So as I said, 150, 180, that will sell within seconds, I would say. Another one is Dream Fragments. That's, I would say, the second one right now. So it's a sapphire ring. So what's going to happen? Yeah, of course, there's no normal one. It's a unique. Oops. So yeah, this one, okay, again, this is a misprice or some price fixing attempt, this one as well, because they are worth between 80 and 100, depending on the roll, depending on lots of factors. So these ones again are worth a lot. This is why normal sapphire rings will also fetch a higher price. For example, here I don't know the price. What I would do personally is put it really high to start with, maybe 200 or 150 exalted, and bring it down. And as soon as I get a ton of whispers, I know I've hit the right price, the right price. So those are the two right now that are really worth anything. But they are not the only ones. The thing is that, as I mentioned before, we are towards the end of the league in a way. So which is why these two are really the only one valuable right now. But before in the league, you could also go, for example, for a very famous item in PoE called Headhunter. So that's a heavy belt. So this heavy belt right now is not worth a lot, it's worth a few divines, but at some point it was worth between 10, 15, 20 divines, depending on how early in the league it was. So that could have been really really interesting to do that. There's another one called Original Sin. So Original Sin has a very low chance of being chanced, but as you see right now, it's worth a couple of divines, maybe a bit more, depending also if you've managed to corrupt it. Earlier in the league, it was more, so that's something to keep in mind. So again, like there's going to be a difference between maybe what you try to chance early in the league and what you try to chance later on. Other examples, so you should keep, for example, Amethyst ring here. Another example would be Sif Torment, so that's Emerald ring. So again, this emerald ring basis could be worth quite a bit. So now it's 50 exalted, but it used to be a lot more. And a final one, and I'm going to come back to this example because it's very interesting, is Everlasting Gaze. I don't know if, for example, in 0.2, Everlasting Gaze is going to be worth quite as much as it did at the beginning of the early access, but this is a very interesting item because it has a very high chance to be chanced. So it was quite easy to get that way in the beginning. And even though right now it's worth only a few exalted orbs at most, I would say, well, maybe a good roll would be worth at least a few exalted orbs. But at some point it was certainly worth around a divine or maybe a bit less. But that was still a significant amount of currency at the time. So now to expand on that, I'll move on to a very interesting website called PoEladder.com, and it has a chance orb calculator specifically for PoE2. So as they say, it is not based on data gathered in Path of Exile 2, so it's not data mining or anything like this. It's just the community experience and knowledge of how this kind of things work. And so they say like best guess, but it's actually a pretty good guess, that's for sure. Here you can look the probabilities, and that's going to be very, very interesting. Let's start with amulets because we were talking about that just a couple of minutes ago. If I take a stellar amulet, for example, I can see that if I try to chance it, there's an 98.2% chance to be destroyed. Okay, so 98.2% of the time, your base is going to disappear when you use an orb chance on it. Now, what's going to happen the remaining 1.8% of the time? Well, out of those 1.75% is going to be fixation of X, and this is worth nothing. so that's not the one you want, really. And only 0.05% of the time is it going to turn into Astramentis. So that's 1 in 2,000. So here you can see easily that, well, it's extremely rare, and that the current prices don't really make sense, because if it was really worth, let's say right now it's worth 250 divines, okay? But if you divide this by 2,000, the figure you get is a lot lower than what people are currently paying for normal stellar amulets. Basically, here what we can see is that you would need, on average, 2,000 attempts before you get Astramentis. Of course, it's on average, so you will have people on Reddit showing you that they got one on their first or second try. But on average, you're in for 2,000 attempts, or a lot more, actually. But even taking this figure of 2,000 attempts, right now, you would need to be paying around 35 to 40 exalted for an attempt for it to make sense at the current price of, let's say, 250 divines. Except the base is currently selling for, let's say, 150, 180, which is a lot more than the just 40 I just announced. So clearly, it's a losing proposition. So you have to hope you're going to get lucky. What's happening is that a lot of people are trying their luck. We've seen that. You can find videos of people doing that with hundreds of stellar amulets, and they get nothing. So they are just like on the, and they are not even on the unlucky side, because actually, if you only do with this kind of probabilities, if you only do a few hundred atoms, it's basically nothing. I calculated you need to do, I think, 1,385 atoms to have over 50% chance of getting Astramentis, if we talk probabilities. So basically anything below at least 500 atoms is nothing, So that wouldn't really matter. So that's something to keep in mind. If you buy stellar amulets at the current market price, it's a losing proposition. So you really have to hope you're going to get lucky, and you have to be careful about that, because even at a conservative estimate of, let's say, 150 exalt for a base, which is not the current price, honestly, I think it's really higher than this, that would buy you roughly 500 attempts. So you will be really shy of the mark here. So really, that's honestly, I think orbs of chance like this it's better to look at them as a fun way. You do it for fun. But when I see people buying hundreds and hundreds of stellar amulets, I'm not sure they are really realistic about their chances here. Now, if we look at another amulet, it's going to be different. So, Everlasting Gaze is going to be a different story, because here, as you see, if you chance an Azure amulet, what's going to happen is that you have 10%, so 80% chance to destroy, 8 out of 10, basically, 1 out of 10 to get Ungil's Harmony, and 1 out of 10 to get Everlasting Gaze. So 1 out of 10 is quite a bit. So suddenly it changes everything, because you can see that it's maybe worth, let's say Everlasting Gaze is worth the same in 0.2 than it was at the beginning of the early access. Then it might be interesting to use Orbs of Chance, because it's a much more, let's say, predictable outcome. And suddenly, if you have Everlasting Gaze, it can represent not an insignificant amount of currency basically at the beginning of the league, whereas your chances of getting Astramentis are extremely low. Now let's have a look at Dream Fragment, for example. So that's a ring. So you can have a look at everything really here. That's a ring. It's a sapphire ring. So here you see, so only about 75% chance to destroy, because you have a pretty high chance of getting Pulse Circle, and then, or whatever way it's pronounced, 10% chance to get Whisper of the Brotherhood, and 0.05% chance of getting Dream Fragments. So here you're kind of hedging your bet a little bit, because what happens is that you still have only one chance in 2000 to get Dream Fragments, so that's as low as Astramentis, so very, very low. And on top of that, Dream Fragments is not quite as valuable, at least in the current situation. But a ring like, a ring like Pulse Circle, which was basically one chance out of 6, was worth quite a bit at the beginning of the league. Again, right now it's not worth anything, but it wasn't the case before. Basically, it didn't used to be the case. So here, that was also, I would say, a pretty good target, because if you get this one, you're maybe not too sad. Maybe that still represents a decent amount of currency at the beginning of a league. All right. We can look at heavy bells, for example. So here, that's also something. So here, Headhunter, 0.3%. So you need, on average, 334 attempts. Typically, for the price of Headhunter in PoE2, I don't think that's really worthwhile. Maybe chances in 0.2 or later will bring back Headhunter to its former glory. Right now, I don't think it's quite there. Another thing to take into account is that you might need a specific item for a build you're doing. It could be in SSF or it could be early league, and you don't want to go to trade because maybe it's going to be expensive, and so on and so forth. So let's say helmet would be a good example, I think. So Forbidden Gaze here, you see. So a lot of them are going to have. So some of them are going to have pretty awful odds, but some of them are going to be quite decent. So here, Alpha's Hole will be again 1 chance in 2000. So I would say kind of forget about it. But some others, like at Series Disdain, which might be valuable again, is 1 chance out of 10. So suddenly that's a lot more interesting. I think we have as well, let me find it. For example, a Black Sun Crest would be 15% chance. So that's also not insignificant. What you can do as well with this website is to download a CSV. So you can get all the raw data and check for that. You can check also the ones that can't be chanced. So typically items that can't be chanced are dropped by bosses and not random world drops. But you have all the information in this CSV, so it can you can maybe plan accordingly. So to sum it up, you can farm Orb of Chance, an Orb of Chance with by disenchanting Unix, or by finding them on the ground. You might not want to chance the same items at the beginning of a league and later on, because the prices change quite a bit. And you should be aware of the probabilities when you do it, so that you see if it's a losing proposition or not, or if you're just going to need, let's say, an insane amount of luck for it to make sense. Okay, well, I hope you maybe learned or discovered something today, and that you got some information out of this video. If you like this content, please consider subscribing to my channel, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.